Alea Johnson walked down the quiet street, her backpack slung over one shoulder, as she hummed softly to herself. The sun had begun its descent, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood. It was a routine walk home from school, one she had done countless times without issue, but today would be different. As she neared the corner, she heard the sharp screech of tires behind her. A police cruiser pulled up beside her, and the window rolled down. "Hey you," a gruff voice called. Alea turned, her heart skipping a beat, as she saw Officer Greg Turner staring at her with narrowed eyes. She had seen him before. His reputation for harassing black people in the community was well known. "Where you heading?" he asked, stepping out of the vehicle. "Home," Alea answered cautiously. "Got some ID on you?" Turner demanded. Alea frowned. "I'm just walking home. I didn't do anything." Turner scoffed, looking her up and down. "In that hair of yours is wild. Looks like a damn bird's nest." Alea's stomach twisted. She had always been proud of her natural curls, the way they framed her face and bounced with every step. But now, standing before this cop, she felt exposed and humiliated. "Do you even go to school?" Turner pressed. "Yes, I do," she said firmly. Turner let out a chuckle. "You people always got an attitude." Alea clenched her fists. "I'm just trying to go home." Turner smirked and reached for something in his pocket. Before Alea could react, he pulled out a pair of scissors. "This mess needs some cleaning up," he muttered. Panic shot through her. "No, you can't." Before she could move, Turner grabbed a section of her hair, and with a few quick snips, cut it off. Alea gasped in horror as the curls fell to the ground. A wave of shock and humiliation washed over her. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but she was frozen in place. "There," Turner said, stepping back. "Much better." Tears blurred her vision as she touched the uneven strands left behind. Her head felt lighter, but her heart felt heavy. She had never been humiliated like this before. "Run along now," Turner said, waving her off like she was nothing. Alea didn't wait. She turned and ran, hot tears streaming down her face as she rushed home. Her mind was spinning, her heart pounding. She burst through the front door, her mother's face immediately filling with concern. "Alea, what happened?" The words barely made it out of her mouth before Alea collapsed into her mother's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. And in that moment, Monica Johnson knew something terrible had happened, and someone was going to pay for it. Monica Johnson held her daughter tightly, feeling her body shake with uncontrollable sobs. She gently stroked what was left of Alea's hair, trying to make sense of what she had just heard. Anger surged through her veins, like fire. "He did what?" she asked, her voice low but dangerous. Alea sniffled, wiping her eyes. "He just grabbed my hair and cut it, in front of everyone, like I was nothing." Monica pulled back, looking into her daughter's teary eyes. "No, baby, you are not nothing. And that man is going to regret ever touching you." Monica grabbed her phone, her hands shaking with rage. She snapped a picture of Alea's uneven hair and sent it to her best friend Angela, who was an activist in the community. Within minutes, Angela was on the phone, her voice full of fury. "We need to go public with this," Angela said. "People need to know." Alea hesitated. She wasn't sure she wanted more attention on her pain, but deep down, she knew this couldn't be ignored. Her best friend Kayla had already posted about it on social media. "Officer Greg Turner humiliated my best friend today. He cut her hair against her will. This is what racism looks like." Within an hour, the post had thousands of shares. People from all over the community were commenting, outraged at what had happened. Some shared their own stories of harassment by Turner, while others demanded justice. The story spread like wildfire. By the next morning, reporters were calling. News stations wanted interviews. Monica, with Alea's permission, agreed to speak out. As they sat in their living room, cameras rolling, Monica held her daughter's hand tightly. "This is not just about my daughter," she said firmly. "This is about every black child who has ever been made to feel less than. This is about the abuse of power, and we are not letting this go." The interview aired that night, and the reaction was explosive. Protesters gathered outside the police station, holding signs that read "Protect our children" and "Fire Officer Turner." Meanwhile, Turner sat in his squad car, scrolling through the news articles about himself. He laughed, shaking his head. "They think they can take me down over some hair," he muttered. "Good luck with that." He had been in the force for years, and he knew how to dodge accountability. The department always covered for him. No way was this going to be any different. But what Turner didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Alea's father was on his way home. And David Johnson was a man who did not take injustice lightly. David Johnson sat in his office, his eyes fixed on the computer screen, as he read the headlines. The words blurred together, as rage boiled in his chest. His fingers tightened into fists, as he scrolled through the images of his daughter, his baby girl, her beautiful curls butchered, her eyes red from crying. His phone buzzed. It was Monica. "David," she said, her voice heavy with exhaustion, "you need to come home." "I already booked a flight," he replied. "I'll be there tonight." The moment the plane landed, David wasted no time. He had been a federal judge for over a decade, handling high-profile cases, bringing criminals to justice. But nothing had ever felt as personal as this. When he stepped through the front door, Alea ran to him. He pulled her into a tight embrace, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm here, sweetheart," he murmured. "Nobody will ever do this to you again." Monica stood behind them, arms crossed. "He's still on the streets, David. He hasn't been suspended. Nothing has been done." David's jaw clenched. "That's about to change." He sat down with Alea, gently lifting her chin. "Tell me everything." She hesitated at first, but then the words spilled out. How Turner stopped her, insulted her hair, and humiliated her in public. David listened in silence, his face unreadable, but Monica knew that look. It was the look of a man preparing for war. David spent the next few hours making calls to lawyers, to civil rights organizations, to people in high places who owed him favors. By morning, a formal lawsuit had been filed against Officer Turner and the police department. The city's mayor received an urgent request for an internal investigation. Meanwhile, the protests outside the police station had grown. Hundreds of people now stood with signs, chanting for justice. News reporters surrounded the scene, demanding answers from the department. Inside the station, Turner was finally feeling the heat. His phone was flooded with messages. His superior, Captain Reynolds, called him into his office. "You screwed up this time, Greg," Reynolds said, rubbing his temples. "This isn't just some routine complaint. Do you have any idea who that girl's father is?" Turner scoffed. "So what? Some angry black guy?" Reynolds slammed a file onto the desk. "That's Judge David Johnson, one of the most powerful federal judges in the country, and you just assaulted his daughter." For the first time, Turner's smug expression faltered. "Judge Johnson," he echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah," Reynolds said, "and if I were you, I'd start praying." Turner swallowed hard, realizing too late that he had picked the wrong person to mess with. The police department was in chaos. The lawsuit filed by Judge David Johnson had put them under intense scrutiny, and the media pressure was relentless. Every news channel covered the story, with headlines blasting Officer Greg Turner's actions.
The department was receiving thousands of calls demanding his immediate suspension. Turner, however, still held on to his arrogance. Sitting at his desk, he scrolled through the news articles, rolling his eyes at the outrage. He had gotten away with worse before. He had the department's protection, but should this time be any different? But as the hours passed, it became clear that this was not like the other times. David Johnson was not just another angry father. He was a man with power, influence, and most importantly, an unshakable will to see justice served. He had spent years dismantling corrupt systems from the inside, and now, he was bringing all that experience to the fight for his daughter. David met with his legal team in his downtown office. His presence was commanding, his voice firm. "I want full accountability," he said. "Turner needs to be charged, and the department needs to answer for their failure to discipline him before this." His lead attorney, Michael Carter, nodded. "We've uncovered reports of previous complaints against Turner. They were all swept under the rug." "Not this time," David said. "This time we make sure he faces consequences." The pressure mounted. The mayor called an emergency meeting with the police commissioner. The governor released a statement condemning the incident. Civil rights organizations joined the fight, demanding a full investigation. Inside the police station, Turner was starting to panic. He had expected the noise to die down, but instead, it was growing louder. When he was called into Captain Reynolds' office again, he knew it wasn't good news. "We have no choice," Reynolds said, folding his hands on the desk. "You're being placed on administrative leave." Turner's face turned red. "You can't be serious." "I am, and if I were you, I'd start looking for a lawyer," Reynolds said coldly. "Judge Johnson is coming for you, and we won't be able to protect you this time." Turner stormed out, slamming the door behind him. For the first time, real fear crept into his chest. He had underestimated Aaliyah's family. He had underestimated the power they held. Meanwhile, the protests outside intensified. People held signs that read "Justice for Aaliyah" and "Stop Police Abuse." Aaliyah watched from her living room window as the community stood up for her. A sense of hope swelled in her chest. She had felt powerless when Turner had cut her hair, but now, she realized she was not alone. Her father placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're not done yet," he said. "This is just the beginning." The courtroom was packed. Journalists, activists, and concerned citizens filled every available seat, all waiting to see how the trial of Officer Greg Turner would unfold. The air buzzed with tension, a collective anticipation hanging over the proceedings. David Johnson sat beside his daughter, his presence calm but commanding. Aaliyah held her mother's hand tightly, her heart pounding, as the judge entered and called the courtroom to order. Turner sat at the defendant's table, his lawyer whispering furiously in his ear. His usual arrogance had faded, replaced by a nervous stiffness. He had hoped for a quiet settlement, but David Johnson had refused any deal that did not include full accountability. Now, Turner was facing multiple charges: assault, misconduct, and abuse of power. The prosecution wasted no time presenting its case. Video footage from security cameras showed Turner stopping Aaliyah, grabbing her hair, and cutting it, while she visibly protested. Witnesses from the neighborhood took the stand, describing the humiliation Aaliyah endured and detailing Turner's long history of racist behavior. Then, Aaliyah was called to testify. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, standing tall despite the weight of the moment. "He treated me like I wasn't even human," she said, her voice steady. "Like my hair, my identity, was something he had the right to take from me. I felt powerless that day, but I refuse to feel powerless now." Her words struck deep. The courtroom was silent, hanging on every word she spoke. When Turner's defense tried to paint the incident as a misunderstanding, David's legal team dismantled every weak excuse. Turner's disciplinary record was laid out for all to see. Complaints of harassment, excessive force, and racial bias, all ignored by the department until now. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning with their verdict: guilty. A murmur spread through the courtroom before the judge silenced it. Turner's face turned pale, As the weight of the decision sank in, the judge sentenced him to prison, ensuring he would never wear a badge again. Outside, cheers erupted from the gathered crowd. Protesters embraced, relief washing over them. Monica hugged Aaliyah tightly, tears of joy in her eyes. David, ever composed, nodded in quiet satisfaction. Justice had been served, but the fight against injustice was far from over. Turner was led away in handcuffs, no longer the untouchable officer who could abuse his power without consequence. He had finally been held accountable, and the message was clear: abuse of authority would not go unpunished. As the family left the courthouse, reporters swarmed them, but Aaliyah only had one statement to make. This wasn't just about me. This was about every person who has ever been made to feel small. Today, we proved that no one is above justice. Her words echoed through the city, a reminder that change was possible. When people stood together, the sun shone brightly over the city. As people gathered in the town square, the energy in the air, a mix of triumph and determination. A temporary stage had been set up, and the crowd, made up of activists, families, students, and reporters, buzzed with anticipation. It had been a long battle, but justice had been served. At the center of it all was Aaliyah Johnson. She stood tall, her presence commanding, yet there was no arrogance in her stance, only quiet strength. Her parents stood beside her, Monica holding her hand while David gave her a reassuring nod. This was her moment. Cameras flashed as Aaliyah stepped up to the microphone. The crowd hushed, waiting for her words. She took a deep breath and began. When Officer Greg Turner cut my hair, he didn't just take a piece of me. He tried to take my dignity, my identity. He wanted to humiliate me, to remind me that he had power over me. But today, I stand here to tell you all. He failed. A wave of applause erupted, but Aaliyah lifted her hand, signaling for silence. She wasn't done. I could have stayed silent. I could have let the fear and embarrassment consume me. But my parents raised me to believe in justice. My father always taught me that no one is above the law, and my mother showed me what it means to fight for what is right. And because of them, because of this community, I found my voice. A murmur of agreement ran through the crowd. Many had followed her story closely, had protested in the streets, demanding justice, had written letters, and called officials to ensure that Turner was held accountable. This victory belonged to them too. But this fight is not just about me, Aaliyah continued. It's about every black child who has been told their hair is unprofessional, every person who has been judged for how they look, every victim of abuse who was too afraid to speak up. I want them to hear me now. You are not alone. You are not powerless, and your voice matters. The cheers were deafening. Some wiped away tears, moved by the strength of a 16-year-old girl who had refused to be broken. As the press conference ended, Aaliyah was surrounded by people, community leaders who wanted to support her, young girls who saw themselves in her, parents who thanked her for standing up against injustice. Meanwhile, in a different part of the city, Greg Turner sat alone in a jail cell. His reputation was ruined. The police department, desperate to save face, had distanced itself from him completely. He had lost his job, his pension, and any hope of returning to law enforcement. He had once believed himself untouchable, but now he was just another disgraced officer whose power had finally been stripped away. The world moved on without him. For Aaliyah, life was different now. She had become a symbol of resilience, an inspiration to many. Though she still carried the pain of what happened, she no longer let it define her. She had taken something ugly and turned it into strength. One day, as she sat in a cafe with her best friend Kayla, a little girl approached her. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Her hair, in beautiful braids, adorned with beads. She looked up at Aaliyah with wide eyes and a shy smile. "Hi," the girl said softly. "My mom showed me your speech. I just wanted to say you're really brave." Aaliyah felt a lump form in her throat. She smiled warmly and bent down, so she was eye level with the girl. "Thank you," she said, "and don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not beautiful, just the way you are." The girl beamed before running back to her mother. Aaliyah watched them go, her heart swelling with hope. Kayla nudged her playfully. "You're kind of a big deal now, you know." Aaliyah laughed. "I don't care about being famous. I just want to make a difference." And she would. This was only the beginning. With the unwavering support of her family and community, Aaliyah moved forward, not as a victim, but as a fighter. She had proven that no one, not a racist cop, not a broken system, could take away her dignity. Her story would be remembered, not for the pain she endured, but for the courage she showed.